Now, Oliver Hart introduced another aspect of contracting that turned out to be very important and useful, which has to do with incomplete contracts, okay? So if we look at a contract, it just doesn't just specify, payments between people, but it also says who should have the right to decide on things in this cooperation, okay? Now, why are these decision rights in these contracts? Well, it has to do with the fact that you can't specify everything in a contract. It will become impossible. They'll become larger than that one. Okay, there's so many things that can happen in the future that we can't even imagine and write down what will happen in the contract. So when we can't do that, then we have to say, okay, what happens if something unexpected or unspecified happens? Who has the right to decide what to do then? Okay, that's where these decision rights come in. So what contracts also do is that they decide who should, or they allocate these decision rights between the contracting parties. Who has the right to make the decision when we haven't specified it beforehand? And this is really what incomplete contracting theory is about. So again, there were sort of informal arguments of how to understand decision rights, ownership, property rights in this context, but there wasn't any formal theory before Oliver Hart and his co-authors developed this starting in the mid-1980s. The idea here, again, is that when contracts are incomplete, you haven't specified anything, then you have to write down who has the right to make the decision, okay, of what to do. Now, having the right to make the decision, that gives you power, okay? And that power helps you actually capture a bigger piece of the cake in your relationship, okay? So if you have the right to decide, if you own the asset, then you're going to get a bigger reward from the cooperation. And that in turn affects your incentives to, for example, invest in this relationship. So this is sort of the gist of the theory. They first applied it to the question of whether a firm should own its supplier or not. Okay, so that's called vertical integration. But it just turned out this is an incredibly rich theory to explain many, many different things. So to give you some examples, this theory was applied to understand, what is really the difference between the firm and the market, okay? What kind of transactions, economic transactions, should better take place within firms and which ones should occur in markets? It has been applied to understand this financial contracting problem, okay? If we want to borrow or get money from an investor, how do we specify the decision rights in that relationship? It can be applied to organization design. So who should have the right to decide? Should the boss decide on everything, or should you delegate more to the employees? That's a problem you can analyze with this theory.